Hi everyone, I'm Tina Wilson and you've just watched this video here, utilising digital media. You may all be wondering what I've got to do with digital media because having seen all the previous presentations, I would be wondering the same thing. But how I like to link the event which I've set up here in Perth back to digital media is I've taken an idea and I've seen it through. Now, all the rules that apply to digital media and apply to any idea will be seen through examples that I'll show here tonight. So, for me, I set up an event that helped artists. So, okay, I'm not making millions of dollars for investors, but I am promoting artists who otherwise would not be seen here in WA and given them opportunities, which are now seeing some of them earning over $100,000 per painting. So that's something that wasn't here before. So for myself, I moved here 10 years ago from the eastern states. I've lived in Melbourne and Sydney. So I have a bit of an idea of the comparisons between the states. So my talk tonight is about Perth. Why do I think, from my experience only, do I think Perth is a great place to live? Well, the number one reason for me is possibilities. The fact that Perth is small, the fact that Perth is not an incredible sized city full of thousands of events that you can attend every night means there's so many events that could be happening here. I don't like to look at things in a negative light. I like to see it in a positive light. So for me, there are many possibilities here. Now, it all started with this painting that I did of Brian Burke many years ago now. Now, I sent this over to the Archibald. The Archibald is one of Australia's most prestigious portrait prizes, which you've probably all heard of. Hopefully, you'll now know about the Black Swan prize. But what I didn't realise is the freight. The cost of sending my artwork from Western Australia to the eastern states was $1,500. And it made me realise, wow, where's the opportunity for W artists? How can they become famous? How can they become well known if they're having to pay these prices? So I decided, instead of whinging and complaining and going, Perth, it's such a backward place, I thought, well, do something about it, and that's why I set up this prize. I also see Perth as a fantastic place because there's so much potential. On a daily basis, I meet people who have incredible skills and are very talented. The thing I do notice about Perth is you probably don't know who those people are. So Perth has a long way to go in terms of establishing itself through the perception here and also the perception in the eastern states. But I think we can do a lot to change that. My way of changing it is through more traditional media, being that of portraiture, but I still think it has the same effect. Now, Perth is the most isolated city in the world, but I think that's a fantastic thing. Already in the music industry, we've seen Perth is renowned now for having very original acts. Now, is that because we're so isolated that we find ways to become more unique or that we're not as influenced by other people? I'm not really sure, but for me, I think we should be more proud of the fact that we are so isolated and build upon that perception. Make it a positive. Stop seeing it as negative and find ways that we can utilize that, because we all know in Perth, if you are talented, if you persevere, and if you do your best, you will succeed very, very quickly because you will be a big fish in a small pond. Now, that is something that Perth has to offer over and above Melbourne and Sydney. I could never have set this portrait prize up in the eastern states. They've got too many competitions, it's all been done before. But here, there's a lot of things that can still be done here, and I think people are ready for it. When I started this event, I didn't know how many people were going to turn up. I thought maybe a few hundred because, I'd been told Perth's pretty conservative. They're not really interested in art. Well, the first year I set this up, 5,000 people came through in 10 days. Now, that's unheard of in Perth. So for me, it showed there is a demand. People do want to have things happening in Perth and do want to see Perth grow. Now, there are some great people who were born and bred in WA. I like to use this example, Swan. You may or may not be aware of him, but he's a children's book illustrator. He honed his skills in Perth. He used the isolation factor to work on his talent. So he spent hours perfecting his drawing style. Now, he could have got disappointed and said, oh, I need to move to the eastern states because there's nothing here for me. Because at the time, there was one publisher. That's it. But what he did is he utilized digital media, emails, scanned his images, sent them to the eastern states, and lo and behold, he ended up getting full-time work based here in WA. He didn't have to move anywhere. And the fantastic thing about Swan is recently he just won an Oscar for a short animation film that he's been working on. So it's another great example of how honing your talent is one of the most important things you can do. And to be in a field where there's not much competition, then you've got a really strong chance of going somewhere. Rolf Harris is another example. He was born in Perth and still has very strong ties with Perth, as you can see from the DVD we created. He's very passionate about Western Australia. John Butler is another example. He's been at our workshops at the hospital. He saw the chance in WA. I mean, he wasn't born in Western Australia, but he grew up in Pinjarra. And he saw an opportunity to hone his skills, to busk constantly wherever he was, and to utilize digital media. He was very good at marketing, very good at promotion. Now, the other thing I find an advantage in Western Australia is, you've probably seen the movie 6 Degrees of Separation. Well, Perth is 2 degrees of separation. Now, that is a fantastic thing, and utilize it as much as you can, because you can be walking down the beach, you could be at a cafe, and you might happen to bump into the Lord Mayor, or you might happen to bump into the CEO of some big mining company. So these are the things you need to think about when you're in WA. From my own experience with this event, I've managed to call a lot of people, cold calling, don't know them from a bar of soap, and managed to get through, have meetings and make connections. Because at the end of the day, it's all about connectivity. That is what the digital media revolution is all about. So utilize the fact that, say you're developing game software, make some calls, contact the people who are within your industry, because what I've discovered is people in Perth are very open, they're very friendly, and they actually have time for a coffee. So get out there and really put yourself on the line, and don't worry if you get a no. Of course you're going to get no's. I've had about 1,000 no's, but every now and then you get a yes, and that yes gives the energy to keep going and keep trying. Now, from my own experience with digital media, in the first years that I began this competition, we didn't have enough funding to do the marketing. And as you all know, how do you get people to an event if you don't have any marketing? So what we did is we utilised email, we utilised Facebook, and we utilised websites. Through that, which I think probably cost about $200 all up, and my time. But basically, that got the word out to 5,000 people. We also utilised the fact that we had creative individuals involved. And what we did is we created publicity stunts. Because it's no point having a great idea if you can't get the media attention. One advantage of WA is there's one newspaper. And you know what? There's not much competition in that newspaper. So if you come up with something pretty original or a really clever idea, pretty much guaranteed you'll get in the newspaper. So this is what we did to promote the Black Swan. Peter Kendall, this is a Perth-based artist. He now charges $100,000 for his paintings. You probably would never have heard of him. He's quite happy living here in WA because the competition's quite small for him. And what we do each year is we create a publicity stunt where we get someone involved in television or a celebrity to pose live in whatever building we can find that's available where passing traffic goes through. And we've had a wonderful reaction from that. Now, I thought I'd just draw your attention back to this because the DVD that you just saw recently, produced by the City of Perth, this boy here, or man I should say, his name is Nick. He lives in Mandurah and he's Perth-based. Now, I don't know if any of you have heard of him. Does anyone know of Pogo? Okay, very, very few people here. Now, Pogo is fantastic. For me, he's an example of a winner with the digital media age. What he did is he created a film clip a music remix film clip of Alice in Wonderland. And lo and behold to him, over 3 million hits on YouTube. So at some point in time, he was sued, which he then took the video clip down, but so many other people kept the video clip up and kept putting it up on other sites. So in the end, they dropped the lawsuit, and then they employed him. So he now has been working for Walt Disney, Pixar, creating these little video clips, which are totally original, and now he has over 11 million hits on YouTube, and he's just recently had his work projected inside the Guggenheim in New York. Now, he is from Perth. He will stay in Perth. And he's just one of the very few examples, or very many examples, I should say. And I'm just looking in the audience at 2 VJs I know who are also well known around the world for what they do, but not necessarily known at all in Perth. So my advice to people is, number one, utilize the things that you think are problems here. If you think there's something negative, try to turn it into a positive. Look at how you can make a change because you're living here. And I know for a fact I love living here because the weather is the best of any place in the world, and you never really feel that stressed because there's kind of this really nice slow pace happening, which is great because it means you can focus on what you really love doing. You can meet people very quickly, and you can make connections very quickly. And there are a lot of genuine, talented people out there who are just waiting to make that connection, but they don't quite know how. So I just want to say congratulations to you all for coming here tonight, because that is one of the best steps you can make in enhancing your career, your future, and your life. So for me, Perth has been fantastic. It's given me an opportunity to utilize the skills I have and promote the talents of people who are not necessarily being promoted. So I hope tonight you can make some connections and get to talk to these 3 people here who I think are doing a fantastic job in their field, and find out what you can do to make a change for where you live. Thank you very much.